This morning, we are in week 3 of a series that we are calling Going Public. And Going Public is all about this transition from Jesus' very private life to his very public ministry. At this time included forming relationships with the people who would stand by Jesus for the rest of his life, including a guy named Matthew. Now, Matthew was a tax collector. So for Jesus to choose him to be one of his disciples was a huge thing. You see, most rabbis, most teachers like Jesus, they went to the temple. They picked the best of the best to be their disciples, their followers. But Jesus went to the streets, and he picked a tax collector. Now, it's important to know that tax collectors were hated by the Jewish people. You see, they were seen as taking money, stealing money from their own community, the Jewish folks, and giving it to the occupying Roman government, giving it to the enemy. This is who Jesus chooses as one of his disciples. We see it in Matthew 9, starting in verse 9. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at a tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Now, this story is in actually a bunch of the different accounts of Jesus' life. And in Luke's account, it says that this dinner is actually a great banquet, a huge party. And so this is Jesus partying with tax collectors and sinners. And you can see the religious leaders, the Pharisees, they've got a problem with this. They consider tax collectors and sinners as unclean, as outside the bounds of society. They'd actually been literally kicked out of the community. They were called sick. They were seen as less than human. But that doesn't concern Jesus. Jesus goes directly for them. And so the Pharisees, the religious leaders, they ask his other disciples, what is he doing? Why is he acting like this? But even though they ask the disciples the question, Jesus is actually the one who answers. And here's what he says. Upon this, hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick." It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. Now, if we don't understand the context and culture, even Jesus using the term sick here can feel a little bit confusing or even kind of rude to talk about his dinner guests that way. But you see, he is turning this society up on its head. He's changing all these concepts of clean and unclean. A myriad of things in this culture could make you unclean. Some of them were taken from the Jewish law. Some of them were added by religious leaders later on. Here are a few examples. You were unclean if you had skin disease, if you'd given childbirth, if you were menstruating, if you came into contact with dead animals, if you eating forbidden foods. All of those were requiring removal from the community. And it wasn't just that, though. You see, the Pharisees, the religious leaders, they had lumped in anyone who did something that they found to be so outside the bounds of God that they were kicked out of community. So people like tax collectors, prostitutes, and other people with vocational sinful jobs. But Jesus wasn't okay with this. It made him so upset that later on he would actually yell at the Pharisees about it. He would say, "You call people unclean, but you are actually the ones who are unclean. You take such good care of the outside, but inside you are rotting away." And so Jesus, as he answers this, he says, "I have not come for all of you who think you have it all together. I've come for those who are sick, those who've been cast aside, those who've been kicked out of community. I am here to welcome them back in." And then at the very end, he turns to the religious leaders and he says this, "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." You see, the religious leaders, they cared more about their appearance than their hearts. They cared more about looking good than actually pursuing what is good. That's not the way of Jesus. So he tells them, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. It's actually a quote from Hosea 6:6. Here's what it says. I want you to show love, not offer sacrifices. I want you to acknowledge me, to get to know me, not just give burnt offerings. Jesus quoting this verse here isn't just telling us that God wants us to love people more. That's true. He wants us to mercifully include everyone. But it's also telling us that Jesus mercifully includes us. No matter who you are or what you've done, You are mercifully included into the family of God. You see, the only requirement for a seat at Jesus' table is an earnest desire to be there. The only requirement to sit at Jesus' table is to want to. You don't have to clean up first. You don't have to figure it all out first. You don't even have to come to Jesus. He comes to you. He pursues you with his love. Our job is to receive him, welcome him in, and experience the healing and restoration that he offers. So no matter how you're feeling today, no matter what you're walking through in your life, know, number one, that you are mercifully welcomed in by Jesus. Number two, that you are fully and completely loved by him, no matter who you are or what you've done. And thirdly, that he wants you to take that mercy and love that he's given to you and give it to every single person that you encounter. So I hope that you do that this week.